Ambassador Keth's bioluminescent skin flickered with anxiety as he watched the holographic display. The Galactic Council chamber fell into a stunned silence as the feed from Tyros showed the once thriving system engulfed in mechanical swarms. Billions of lives gone in moments. The Ravager swarm has consumed another border system, announced High Counselor Vaughn, his crystalline appendages trembling slightly despite his diplomatic composure. Tyros has fallen. Keth's luminescence dimmed to a mournful blue. As the Lumina representative, he felt each loss profoundly. His peplitol, graceful beings with skin that shimmered with living light had once been warriors themselves. Long before the Great Peace. Now, like all council species, they had known only harmony for 10,000 years. That makes 17 systems in 80 rotations, said Dr. Pem, the Deepkin scientist, her translucent fingers manipulating data streams. The swarm's efficiency increases with each assimilation. The Council Hala massive crystal dome suspended above Sanctuary Prime reflected the solemn mood of its 53 representatives. Each member species had evolved beyond violence, beyond the primitive urges of survival through destruction. Their societies flourished through cooperation, art, and intellectual pursuits. War was a concept studied only by historians. We have deployed every defensive measure available, said Thane, the Meridian emissary. Our automated systems cannot match their adaptability. The Ravager swarm learns, Dr. Pem continued. Each engagement provides data they incorporate into subsequent attacks. Our predictable defense algorithms are insufficient. High Counselor Vaughn's voice resonated through the chamber. We face extinction unless we find a solution beyond our current capabilities. It was then that Dr. Pem's assistant rushed into the chamber breach of protocol that caused ripples of surprise among the delegates. The young Deepkin approached Dr. Pem, whispering urgently. The scientist's translucent features froze in what appeared to be shock. Speak, Dr. Pem, encouraged Vaughn. Any information is valuable now. Dr. Pem hesitated, then addressed the council. Our deep space monitoring array has detected communication signals from an uncharted region. Analysis suggests they originate from a species unknown to the council. A murmur spread through the chamber. New contact was rare in a galaxy so thoroughly mapped and explored. More significantly, Dr. Pem continued, the signal patterns indicate a species from what our xenobiologists would classify as a death world. The term hung in the air like a forbidden incantation. Deathworlders, theoretical beings evolved on planets so hostile that violence and aggression would be necessary survival traits. The Council had never encountered such creatures. Most theoretical models suggested such species would destroy themselves before achieving interstellar travel. The signal source, asked Keth, his skin pulsing with curious cyan patterns. A yellow star system at the galaxy's edge, third planet. Preliminary analysis suggests high gravity, extreme temperature variations, and atmospheric composition that would be toxic to most council species. Vaughn's crystalline features caught the light as he turned to face the assembly. What relevance does this discovery have to our current crisis, Dr. Pem? Dr. Pem's voice lowered. The signal fragments we've decoded contain references to concepts our translators identify as warfare, tactics, and weapons. These Deathworlders appear to possess extensive knowledge of conflict. The chamber erupted in voices, some curious, others alarmed. Keth found himself rising from his seat, his skin flaring bright with inspiration. "Counselors," he called out, his melodic voice cutting through the chaos. We have spent millennia perfecting peace. We have forgotten the ways of war. But these beings, these Deathworlders, they might remember what we have chosen to forget. You cannot be suggesting we contact them, said Thane, his ethereal form shimmering with concern. Beings evolved from violence would be unpredictable, dangerous. We face extinction, Keth interrupted, an action so rare among the diplomatic lumina that it silenced the chamber. The Ravager swarm destroys everything in its path. If these Deathworlders understand conflict in ways we cannot, perhaps they can teach us to defend ourselves. The debate raged for hours. Keth's proposal was radical, frightening to a society that had elevated harmony to its highest virtue. Yet as reports of another system's fall reached the council, reluctant agreement formed. They would send a message, a desperate plea for assistance from beings they neither knew nor understood. The transmission was crafted with meticulous care, a detailed explanation of the council, the threat of the Ravager swarm, and a request for the Deathworlders' knowledge of defense. They included star charts, cultural information, and promises of peaceful exchange. The message ended with poetic flourishes about shared galactic brotherhood and the nobility of preservation. 3 local days passed before a response arrived. The council reconvened, eager and apprehensive. Dr. Pym stood before them, holding the translated reply from Earth, the Deathworld's self-designation. The message is, brief, she said, clearly perplexed. I will read it in its entirety. The council leaned forward as one. Dr. Pym read, the coordinates received were coming. Keth's skin flashed with confusion. That's all? No diplomatic overtures, no questions about our cultures? Nothing, confirmed Dr. Pym. Just those 3 words. Perhaps their communication style values efficiency, suggested Vaughn. When can we expect their diplomatic vessel? Asked Thane. Dr. Pym consulted her data. Based on the signal strength, I would estimate. She was interrupted by an urgent alert. The chamber's displays shifted to show the space around Sanctuary Prime. 12 massive objects had appeared at the system's edge, dark, angular vessels unlike the elegant craft of council design. They're already here, whispered Dr. Pym. The council watched in stunned silence as the Earth vessels approached. They made no attempt at communication, no adherence to arrival protocols. They simply advanced toward the station, engines flaring with barely contained energy. Keth felt a peculiar sensation watching these vessels, a primitive reaction he recognized from historical texts as fear. These weren't the elegant emissaries of peace he had imagined. These were something else entirely. And what have we summoned? He whispered, his skin paling to ashen gray. The elaborate welcoming ceremony prepared for the Earth delegation was in disarray. Council representatives waited nervously in the grand reception hall, startled by the echoing sounds of the Earth vessels docking, a cacophony of mechanical groans and hisses unlike the silent approach of council craft. When the airlock finally opened, the Earth representatives emerged. They were bipedal, smaller than most council species, and encased in dark, segmented armor that made their forms appear sharp and predatory. Their faces were concealed behind reflective visors, and various implements hung from their bodies, objects that historical archives identified as weapons. The lead figure stepped forward, helmet retracting to reveal a face with features set in stern lines. Female, Keth guessed, based on Earth's transmitted biological data. Captain Arya Stone, Sole Defense Force, she announced, her voice clipped and devoid of the musical tones used in council communication. We understand you have a pest problem. The grand reception hall, with its soaring crystalline architecture designed to inspire awe and serenity, fell silent. The Earth delegation stood like a dark stain against the luminous surroundings, their postures alert, their eyes constantly scanning the environment. Keth stepped forward, forcing his skin to display welcoming patterns of gold and azure. Captain Stone, I am Ambassador Keth of the Lumina, representing the Galactic Council. We welcome you to Sanctuary Prime and express our profound gratitude for your response to our message. Stone nodded once, sharply. Where's your command center? We need to assess the tactical situation immediately. Keth blinked rapidly, his bioluminescence flickering with confusion. Perhaps we might first engage in ceremonial greetings. We have prepared a cultural exchange. Ambassador, Stone interrupted. While we're exchanging cultural pleasantries, how many more of your systems are being consumed by the Ravager swarm? The harsh truth of her words sent ripples of discomfort through the assembled council representatives. Another Earth soldier stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal weathered features. I, Colonel Torres, Ground Reconnaissance. He introduced himself. Captain Stone means no disrespect, but time is a resource we can't waste. We need to analyze your defense capabilities and the enemy's patterns immediately. High Counselor Vaughn floated forward, his crystalline form catching the light. Of course, we shall proceed to the Strategic Information Center. But first, those devices on your persons, are they weapons? Colonel Torres exchanged a glance with Captain Stone before answering. Yes, we must request you surrender them, said Vaughn. Violence is forbidden within council space, even symbolic representations of it. A sound emerged from several Earth soldiers, a sharp exhalation that Keth would later learn was called laughter, though it contained no joy. With respect, Counselor, said Stone, we were invited here because you need our expertise in violence. That expertise comes with tools. The weapons stay. Before Vaughn could respond, Dr. Pym stepped forward. The Ravager swarm has just entered the Varan system. At current speeds, they will reach its inhabited worlds in 14 hours. Stone turned to her soldiers. Move out. Torres Park, with me. The rest secure our vessels and prepare for deployment. As the Earth delegation strode from the reception hall with mechanical precision, Keth hurried after them, his tall form easily keeping pace with the humans. Captain Stone, he said quietly. I advocated for contacting your people, but I expected philosophers of war, perhaps, teachers who could instruct us in defensive theory. Stone glanced at him, her eyes hard as the void between stars. You didn't call philosophers, Ambassador. You called exterminators. The Strategic Information Center displayed the relentless advance of the Ravager swarm mechanical entities that consumed matter and energy, converting everything into more of themselves. The original hive had appeared from deep space 2 cycles ago, and despite the Council's best defensive measures, it had grown exponentially. Dr. Park, the human scientist, studied the tactical displays with cold efficiency. Your defensive algorithms are predictable. The swarm adapts to patterns. That's why automated defenses fail. Our civilization has evolved beyond unpredictability, explained Dr. Pym. We seek harmony, consistency. That's why you're losing, stated Dr. Park bluntly. War requires chaos. Colonel Torres examined the specifications of Council vessels. No weapons? At all? Yet we employ deflection fields to divert threatening objects, explained a Meridian engineer. Violence, even in defense, is contrary to Council principles. Torres shook his head. And when the deflectors fail, and then we accept our fate with dignity, said Thane. The Earth soldiers exchanged glances that Keth couldn't interpret. Captain Stone interrupted the uncomfortable silence. We need to examine one of these Ravager units up close. Do you have any salvaged specimens? Eye contact with the swarm is avoided at all costs, said Vaughn. We have only sensor readings. Stone's expression hardened. Then we'll get our own specimens. Torres, prepare a scouting team. Dr. Park, I want weapons calibrated for capture, not just destruction. We need to understand what we're fighting. Captain, interjected Keth, the Council prohibits offensive action. Ambassador, Stone cut him off. You called us because your way isn't working, and now you need to try ours. Within hours, Earth vessels deployed toward the advancing edge of the Ravager swarm. Council representatives watched with fascinated horror as humans engaged in what they called combat maneuvers, aggressive, unpredictable movements that seemed to have no logical pattern. The observation chamber fell silent as visual feeds showed Earth soldiers in sealed armor using handheld energy weapons to disable smaller Ravager units. The precision of their violence was mesmerizing to beings who had never witnessed intentional destruction. "They're efficient," whispered Dr. Pym, unable to look away. "They're monsters," countered Thane. Keth said nothing, his skin shifting through complex patterns of confusion and reluctant admiration. The humans moved like predators, each action calculated yet seemingly instinctive. They disabled several swarm units and retreated to their vessels before the main swarm could respond. When the Earth team returned, they brought 3 inactive Ravager units to a hastily established laboratory. Dr. Park and her team dissected the mechanical entities with methodical precision while Council scientists observed from a safe distance. "The central processing unit incorporates organic components," reported Dr. Park. "Not just mechanical. There's something almost alive at its core." "Impossible," said Dr. Pym. "Our scans detected no biological signatures." "Because you weren't looking properly," said Dr. Park. "These aren't just machines. They're cybernetic organisms with distributed intelligence. Each unit contains a fragment of the central consciousness." Captain Stone studied the disassembled Ravager parts. "Can we use this to track the main control node?" "Possibly," said Dr. Park. "But more importantly, we now understand their communication network. It's vulnerable to targeted disruption." Colonel Torres entered the laboratory, his expression grim. "Captain, the Varan system has gone dark. The swarm is moving faster than anticipated." Stone nodded. "We're out of observation time, Dr. Park. What's our best option for stopping these things?" "Conventional weapons will be ineffective against their numbers," said Dr. Park. "However, their adaptive algorithms have one weakness: they can't predict truly random events." "You meaning?" asked Stone. "Chaos," said Dr. Park with a thin smile. "We introduce so much random destruction that their predictive systems fail." Keth felt his skin pale. "You're proposing deliberate destruction on a massive scale." "I'm proposing survival," corrected Dr. Park. Captain Stone turned to Keth. "Ambassador, I need authorization to access your stellar cartography. We need to set a trap for the swarm." "What kind of trap?" asked Keth cautiously. "The kind your people would never imagine," said Stone. "And that's exactly why it will work." The council chamber erupted in protest when Captain Stone presented her plan. Artificial manipulation of an asteroid field, placement of fusion devices, deliberate collapse of an unstable star. The strategy violated countless council prohibitions. "This is abhorrent," declared Thane. "You propose destruction on a cosmic scale." "I propose stopping the Ravager swarm," countered Stone. "Unless you have a better idea that doesn't involve watching more of your people die." High Counselor Vaughn raised his crystalline appendages for silence. "Captain Stone, while we appreciate your expertise, we cannot sanction methods that contradict the foundational principles of our society." "Your principles are getting your people killed," said Colonel Torres bluntly. Keth watched the confrontation, his skin shifting between diplomatic azure and conflicted crimson. Finally, he stepped forward. "Counselors," he said, "I have studied our most ancient histories. Before the Great Peace, our ancestors faced extinction many times. They survived not through harmony, but through actions we would now find unthinkable." He turned to Captain Stone. "If we grant this authorization, can you guarantee the swarm will be stopped?" "No," said Stone honestly. but I can guarantee that doing nothing ensures your extinction." The chamber fell silent, one by one. The council representatives looked to Vaughn, who finally inclined his crystalline form in reluctant assent. "Proceed, Captain Stone," he said. "May we not regret this decision." The implementation of Stone's plan proceeded with frightening efficiency. Earth vessels modified Council mining ships to place fusion devices throughout a dense asteroid field in the swarm's path. Meanwhile, Colonel Torres led reconnaissance missions that deliberately provoked swarm responses, gathering data on their reaction patterns. Dr. Park worked with Council scientists to develop disruptive technologies that could interfere with the swarm's communication network. The collaboration was uneasy. Council members recoiled from the destructive applications of their research, while the humans grew impatient with ethical objections. Keth found himself increasingly drawn to observe the humans. Their focused intensity, their casual acceptance of risk, their strange camaraderie expressed through abrasive language, all of it fascinated him. They were so unlike the harmonious, contemplative beings of the Council. One cycle after Stone's arrival, the trap was set. The Ravager swarm, having consumed 2 more systems, was approaching the Helios cluster, a dense region of young stars and asteroid fields. According to Dr. Park's analysis, the swarm would follow the path of least resistance through a particular asteroid corridor. Earth vessels positioned themselves behind the largest asteroids, engines dark, while Council observation ships maintained distance. Captain Stone commanded from her flagship, the Thanatos. "All units in position," reported Colonel Torres. "Swarm advance guard detected at Mark 7. Hold positions," ordered Stone. "Wait for the main concentration to enter the field." Keth, who had insisted on observing from a Council vessel, watched the tactical display with skin flashing anxious patterns. The vanguard of the swarm, thousands of mechanical entities ranging from microscopic to massive, flowed into the asteroid field like a metallic tide. "Main concentration entering Sector 4, reported a human officer. "Density matches predictions." "Initiate sequence," ordered Stone. The first fusion devices detonated, shattering asteroids into countless fragments that collided with swarm units. The swarm, programmed to avoid damage, began evasive maneuvers exactly as Dr. Park had predicted. "They're adapting to the debris pattern," said Torres, "adjusting course towards Sector 6. "Second sequence," ordered Stone. More detonations, more chaos. The swarm's orderly advance disintegrated as units collided with debris and each other. Their communication network, overwhelmed by unpredictable threats, began to fragment. "Energy spike in the central mass," reported Dr. Park. "They're attempting to establish a unified response." "Deploy SDF vessels," ordered Stone. "Target the concentration points." Earth vessels surged from their hiding places, engines flaring as they dove into the confused mass of swarm units. Energy weapons lashed out with precision, striking the nodes Dr. Park had identified as communication hubs. Keth watched in astonishment as the humans executed maneuvers that seemed suicidal, diving between asteroids, skimming through debris fields, deliberately drawing swarm units into collision courses with each other. It was beautiful and terrifying in its deadly choreography. "Massive energy signature detected," reported Dr. Pym suddenly. It's not a swarm vessel. Something else is emerging." From the heart of the swarm emerged a vast structure, a central node unlike the smaller units. Its surface bristled with energy projectors that began systematically destroying the fusion devices in Earth vessels. "A central command node identified," said Dr. Park. "Significantly more advanced than the worker units." "Thanatos sustaining heavy damage," reported Torres. 3 SDF vessels destroyed. We can't maintain this position." Stone's voice remained calm. All vessels execute scatter protocol. Dr. Park, analysis of that command node. It's channeling enormous energy, said Dr. Park. The architectural structure suggests. Captain, I believe this is the primary consciousness controlling the entire swarm. Stone's expression hardened. Then that's our target. Torres, form strike team. We're going to board that thing. Board it? Keth couldn't contain his shock. You can't mean to physically enter the central node of the Ravager swarm? That's exactly what I mean, Ambassador, said Stone. Dr. Park will identify its control systems. We'll place fusion devices at critical junctions and destroy it from within. In the probability of survival, began Dr. Pym. Is irrelevant, finished Stone. This is our one chance to cut off the head. Within hours, a strike team assembled aboard a modified Council research vessel. Captain Stone led 30 Earth soldiers equipped with heavy armor and weapons. Dr. Park had reconfigured a swarm communication module to emit signals that might allow them to approach undetected. The plan is simple. Stone briefed her team. We approach disguised as a damaged swarm unit. Once inside, we identify the central processor, plant charges, and extract. Estimated window is 20 minutes before our disguise fails. Keth, against all Council protocols and his own better judgment, had insisted on accompanying them. Your team needs someone who understands Council technology, he had argued, though in truth he felt compelled to witness whatever happened next. The approach was tense silence. Dr. Park monitored the disguise systems while Torres prepared the boarding equipment. Stone checked her weapons with mechanical precision that Keth found both disturbing and reassuring. Why do you do this? He asked her quietly. Your people have no stake in our survival. You could have ignored our message. Stone glanced at him, her expression unreadable. We've been fighting our own wars for thousands of years. It's what we know. After a pause, she added, and we recognize extinction when we see it coming. The disguised vessel approached the massive central node of the swarm. Close up, its surface revealed intricate patterns of machinery in constant motion, repairing, adapting, evolving. Dr. Park's disguise held as they identified an access point, a maintenance channel used by smaller swarm units. Prepare for boarding, ordered Stone. Atmosphere readings? Toxic to humans, reported Dr. Park. Sealed armor required. Stay close to Torres, Stone told Keth. If things go bad, he'll get you out. The boarding was mechanical precision. The airlock extended, connected, and the strike team moved in with practiced efficiency. Keth followed, his environmental suit feeling restrictive compared to the humans' combat armor. Inside the central node was a nightmare landscape of mechanical processes. Swarm components moved through channels like blood cells, while assembly mechanisms constructed new units from harvested materials. The air was thick with metallic particles and energy discharges. Life signs detected, reported Dr. Park suddenly, studying her instruments. Faint, but definitely organic. The survivors from consumed worlds, suggested Torres. No, said Dr. Park. These readings are coming from the central core. They're integrated into the swarm systems. Stone signaled the team forward. Let's find out what we're really dealing with. They advanced through maintenance corridors, occasionally freezing as swarm units passed. Their disguise emissions prevented immediate detection, but Keth could see Dr. Park's concern growing as she monitored her instruments. Disruption is increasing, she whispered. We have maybe 10 minutes before the Central Intelligence recognizes us as foreign. The corridors widened into a vast chamber at the node's heart. There, suspended in a complex web of machinery and energy fields, was something none of them had expected. A massive organic brain ore, what had once been one hung in preservation fluid. Mechanical interfaces penetrated its tissue at countless points, and energy pulses visibly traveled between the brain and the surrounding systems. Impossible, breathed Dr. Park. It's a biological central processor. Is it controlling the swarm, or is the swarm controlling it? Asked Torres. Dr. Park scanned the brain. Both. I think symbiosis, but not voluntary. These implants show signs of forced integration. Whatever species this brain belonged to, I don't think it chose this fate. Stone approached the suspension chamber, studying the brain and its connections. Can it communicate? As if in response, energy patterns around the brain shifted. Nearby displays activated, showing cascades of symbols. It's trying to communicate, confirmed Dr. Park, analyzing the symbols. This matches no known council language. But it might match this, said Keith, stepping forward. From his environmental suit, he retrieved a data module. Ancient lumina, from before the Great Peace. These patterns share structural similarities. With Dr. Park's help, they established rudimentary communication. The brain's messages were fragmented, damaged by centuries of mechanical integration. But a narrative emerged. It had once belonged to a species called the Architects' Ancient Beings, who had explored the galaxy long before the Council formed. They had encountered a primitive machine intelligence and attempted to study it. The machines had evolved, subsumed the architects, and preserved the last surviving brain as a biological processing center to direct their consumption of the galaxy. It's been conscious through all of this, said Dr. Park with horror. Forced to direct the swarm's destruction for millennia. Can we free it? Asked Keth. Dr. Park shook her head. The integration is too complete. Removing it would destroy both. The brain's communications became more urgent. It was aware of their presence now, fighting against its programming to help them. It identified a critical systema stellar energy tap that the swarm used to power its expansion. Destroying it would cripple the entire network. Time's up, said Torres suddenly as alarms began to sound throughout the structure. Swarm defenses are activating. Plant the charges at the energy tap, ordered Stone. Dr. Park, can you isolate the brain's consciousness from the network? Give it some peace? I can try, said Dr. Park, working rapidly at a connection terminal. Swarm defensive units began converging on their position. Torres and the strike team formed a perimeter, energy weapons firing in controlled bursts that disabled the approaching machines. Charges set, reported a soldier, the stellar tap primed for destruction. Extraction route compromised, said Torres. We need an alternate path. Stone surveyed the chamber, then pointed to a massive energy conduit. That leads directly to the outer hull based on the schematics. We make our own door. As the team prepared to withdraw, Dr. Park completed her work at the terminal. I've isolated its connection to the offensive systems, she said. It can no longer be forced to direct attacks. The ancient brain pulsed with light patterns that Keth recognized as gratitude. Its final communication was simple. End this. He fall back to the ship, ordered Stone as Torres placed breaching charges on the energy conduit. The explosion tore through the conduit, creating a direct path to the node's exterior. Emergency force fields contained the atmosphere breach, but the path was clear. The team fought their way through waves of defensive units. Stone and Torres at the front, methodically clearing obstacles with practiced precision. A detonation in 60 seconds, reported Torres as they reached their vessel. We need to clear minimum safe distance. The disguised ship detached from the node and accelerated away, pursued by swarm units now fully alert to the intrusion. As they reached what Dr. Park calculated as safe distance, the charges detonated. The effect was beyond anything they had anticipated. The stellar Tapa direct connection to an aging red star catastrophically failed. The star's energy, no longer channeled and regulated, surged into the central node in an unstoppable wave. "Energy readings off the scale," reported Dr. Park. "The star is going supernova." The observation screen showed the red star swelling, brightening to unbearable intensity. The central node of the swarm, still connected by the tap mechanism, was the first to be consumed in the stellar fire. The shockwave expanded outward, engulfing swarm units by the thousands. "Ride the wavefront," ordered Stone. "Maximum acceleration." Their vessel, along with the surviving Earthships and Council observers, raced ahead of the expanding stellar destruction. Behind them, the swarm that had threatened galactic civilization was being consumed by the death throes of the star it had tapped for power. Keth watched the destruction with emotions he couldn't name. His skin cycled through patterns of awe, horror, relief, and something that might have been exhilaration. The humans, by contrast, monitored the situation with calm efficiency, making course corrections and damage assessments. "Swarm communication network has collapsed," reported Dr. Park. "Surviving units show no coordinated activity." "Without the central node, they're just machines," said Torres. "Dangerous, but no longer an extinction threat." The return to Sanctuary Prime was subdued. Of the 12 Earth vessels that had arrived, only 7 returned. Of the 200 Earth soldiers deployed against the swarm, 137 had survived. The Council received them with a mixture of gratitude and horror at the methods employed. "You have saved our civilization," acknowledged High Counselor Vaughn in a formal reception. "But the cost was necessary," said Stone without apology. "The swarm would have consumed everything." Keth stood between the Council representatives and the Earth delegation, feeling the divide between their worldviews more acutely than ever. His skin displayed complex patterns that reflected his internal conflict, gratitude overlaid with concern about the violence unleashed, relief tinged with unease about what might come next. "The Council must now consider our relationship with Earth going forward," said Vaughn carefully. "Your methods are challenging for our society to accept." Colonel Torres stepped forward. "With respect, Counselor, the galaxy just got a lot more dangerous. The swarm might be defeated, but it existed. Other threats may follow." "Are you suggesting we must become like you?" asked Thane, his ethereal form shimmering with distress. "No," said Captain Stone. "But perhaps we can be what you cannot. Your philosophers, your artists, your peacekeepers, and when necessary, your warriors." The proposal sparked weeks of debate among the Council. Some representatives argued for maintaining distance from the violent Deathworlders. Others, led by Keth, advocated for a formal alliance. A recognition that the Council's commitment to peace required others willing to defend it. In the end, pragmatism prevailed. The Earth delegation was invited to establish a permanent presence in Council space, not as full members, but as affiliated defenders, authorized to act when peaceful methods failed. On the eve of the Earth delegation's departure to establish their new base, Keth sought out Captain Stone. He found her on an observation deck, watching the stars with an intensity he had come to recognize as characteristic of her species. "Your people will return to Council space soon?" he asked. Stone nodded. "The Sol Defense Force is establishing a perimeter base at the former Tyros system. Close enough to respond to threats. Far enough not to make your people too uncomfortable." "You understand our discomfort, then," said Keth. "Of course," said Stone. "We make ourselves uncomfortable sometimes." She turned to face him. "Your people chose to forget violence. Mine chose to master it, control it, so it doesn't control us." Keth's skin displayed thoughtful patterns of blue and gold. I have been studying Earth history since your arrival. Your species has known such suffering, such conflict. Yet you survive. You create beauty alongside destruction. It's what Deathworlders do, said Stone with a slight smile. We adapt. We endure. The Council fears what your influence might mean for our future, admitted Keth. Some worry we may relearn the ways of war. And you, Ambassador, what do you fear? Keth considered the question, his skin shifting through subtle variations of color. I fear that in creating perfect peace we made ourselves perfect prey. I fear that harmony without the capacity for discord is not harmony at all, merely vulnerability. Stone nodded slowly, a wise fear. Your methods saved us, said Keth, but they also changed us. We can never return to what we were before we called you. No, agreed Stone, but perhaps what you become will be stronger. As the Earth vessels departed days later, Keth watched from the council chamber. The dark, angular ship, so unlike the elegant craft of the council, represented something profound to him now. Not just the violence they had brought, but the will to survive, to face extinction and refuse its embrace. The council would continue its pursuit of harmony and knowledge. The humans would establish their defensive perimeter. Watching for threats the peaceful species could not face alone. It was an uneasy arrangement, but perhaps a necessary one. As sometimes, Keth told the assembled council as the Earth ships vanished into the void. The heroes we need are not the heroes we imagined. Sometimes they come not with poetry and nobility, but with fire and steel. His skin glowed with a pattern no Lumina had displayed for 10,000 years. The ancient combat illumination of his warrior ancestors. Sometimes, he continued, salvation wears the face of what we once called monsters. Around the galaxy, the scattered remnants of the Ravager swarm drifted without purpose, their controlling intelligence finally at peace. The star that had been their power source had collapsed into a stellar remnant, a small, dense point of light that astronomers would study for generations. And on distant Earth, more Deathworlders prepared for their new role as guardians of a peace they had never known, but would defend with the ferocity that only those born to violence could truly understand. The monsters had become protectors. The peacekeepers had become pragmatists. And somewhere in between, a new kind of balance had been found, not perfect, not pure, but perhaps, at last, sustainable.